we are entering the final part of this new kind of symposium, understanding astronomy for Earth and for better care of all on Earth and Earth itself and perhaps the whole cosmos. Before we have a formal or official closing of the symposium, we will have Dr. Jan Visser, a very good friend of mine, the leader of the Learning Development Institute, an institute with really, really wonderful motivation. So Jan may a little bit introduce that. And this is perhaps a little unusual to have a keynote lecture at the closing. Of course, this is part of the weird thing about this symposium, not only the topic, but what's going on in it and how it would end also. So because of the funny motivation or new motivation of the symposium, developing astronomy to take better care, to understand Earth better, is, you know, it's a very heavy word of reflection, not mentioned implicitly. So because of the variation in the topics that we covered this week, we may need a little help in getting what is the most important message we should take home. After the symposium, what is the most important thing that we could carry forward? It could be projects, could be ideas, but Jan would help us with the motivation, with the more philosophy, with the reflection. So thank you very much, Jan, for doing this for us. So you've got 45 minutes for this.
Thank you so much, Pramana. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all those who are participating. Pramana, it is actually just 2 days and 3 months ago that you contacted me about this symposium, and it immediately struck me as something very special. I wanted to participate. Since that date, the 3rd of July, I've been thinking about this issue of caring for the Earth, which was new to me. I learned a lot, much more than I can offer you back at this moment. So what I'll be giving is a couple of things. But it's definitely a concept that needs to be further elaborated. So Pramana already introduced me, my name, etc. I have a multidisciplinary background. I'm a theoretical physicist by original vocation, but I have also moved into the area of cognitive science. And while studying physics, I was very much interested in related disciplines. So I went to Leiden to sit in the classes of Oort and Van der Hulst, and in Amsterdam to do philosophy. This all is part of my brain now. I've started with this picture that you see projected, which is in fact a piece of the Earth. It's the crust of the Earth that you see, and it's at the location where we live in southern France. It's a very nice area. It's inspiring, and in the course of my presentation, I'll tell you more about what life in that area means. I won't be giving you any results of a research study or whatever, but you'll have observations. I'll share experiences, problems that I see, assumptions that I make, propositions, and things particularly to question and to think about. This is the object of our concern, the Earth. And I should tell you where I come from. I'm not from here. I came from outer space. I was constructed from stardust. And I landed here 85 years ago, 12th April 1938, and found the world not immediately because I had to adjust to this new environment. But as I became conscious, say, around the age of 2, that I started recognizing things and throwing things at it, and it already was war. That is one of the first experiences in my life that I came in the context of humans who fight each other and who kill each other and who occupy each other's territory, who create suffering. I wasn't very much interested in humans. I got more interested in nature, for that matter. But growing up at that time, in 1940, the city where my parents lived and I was almost completely destroyed. So I passed my childhood among ruins, which sounds terrible, but it wasn't for a child. For a child, it means that you're in an environment of raw materials that you can use at liberty, which I did. It's certainly been an inspiration for my development as a scientist. It had also a great advantage because it was war. There were no lights on, as far as there were still lanterns available to light the city. So I could see the sky. And that definitely has contributed to my interest in astronomy. So there I am. But now our planet is in danger. And who cares? This is an absolutely new phenomenon, that the idea of caring for the planet comes up. We have, for a very long time, actually, as long as humanity existed, tens of thousands of years, that we at least can check back in terms of archaeological finds, in terms of documentation. For all that time, Earth was seen as a given and a thing with resources that were there for the taking, as much as one would like. And that's what we did. So we have probably never consciously thought of caring for the Earth. If we did it, it was for the reasons. It was simply because we felt we should do the right thing, just as other animals do. But our problem is we have consciousness, and we are not, we think we are distinctly different from the other animals, but certainly in a sense, our consciousness allows us to plan ahead, to have ideas, and for that reason, we may not that naturally interact with our environment. So our human presence has been the cause of the situation that we are in now, that the Earth is closely to, not the Earth itself as a body of material, but in the sense that I will further discuss, is close to being destroyed. From the year 2000 onwards, there have been warning signs. First of all, there was Paul Crutzen and Eugene Sturmer to come up with a brief article in a newsletter that we should rename this geological period Holocene and call it the Anthropocene, because of this particular phenomenon that we as humans have such a dramatic influence of what is happening in the world and in the universe. Then in 2002, Jacques Chirac, the then French president, at the World Summit in Johannesburg, South Africa, where all the heads of states came together to discuss the issue of climate change, which was a very early stage that this came to public attention. He uttered a now famous phrase. He said, notre maison brûle et nous regardons ailleurs. Our house is on fire and we look elsewhere. People were stunned, but then went on doing what they were always doing, not caring. Then in 2007, the economist Jeffrey Sachs had been selected to be the Reith Lecturer of that year. The Reith Lecture is a series of lectures, annual lectures that the BBC presents. And he spoke about a world bursting at the seams and also made reference to the same term, Anthropocene. And in 2011, I saw the first publication that seriously actually is linked to this problem in Nature. It coincided with one of our Building the Scientific Mind colloquia that took place that year in South Africa. Mana was there also, and I took the opportunity then already as a colloquium when I introduced it to call attention to that particular article by Bernosky. Then in 2016, we as the Learning Development Institute decided to create a program, a 10-year program on human learning in the Anthropocene, considering that these conditions that we currently are having ask a very different look on what human learning means than the look that people normally have on this issue. But even at that time, 2016, I still had to explain people what the term Anthropocene meant. It wasn't yet part of the ordinary discourse. We are now in 2023, and this is very recent, an article that I came up somewhere, I think in the New York Times or any of those other journals that I read, that Stanford scientists at Stanford University had discovered that human-driven mass extinction is mutilating the tree of life. So it's seriously damaging the biological diversity of which the ecology depends, and may bring it to total extinction. So our planet is in distress, and I give it here following the example of James Lovelock and Lynn Margulis, the name Gaia. Gaia is a Greek goddess that represents the earth, but it shows it also to refer to the earth as a living organism. The earth as we know it is not just dead material. It is dead material and living material on top of it, and the living material creates all kinds of other interesting things that emerge from it. So here's a brief overview of what that means. that I invite you to read. I'm not going to read it for you. I highlight a few points what strikes me in this idea of a totality of a complex system that is built of inorganic and organic material, and in which life has emerged, and in that life consciousness has emerged, and thanks to consciousness culture has emerged. There everything hangs together and has bonds between those different parts. Many of those bonds are broken. Care is the condition that I propose for healing the bonds. And I ask the question, what is care? And I'll be much elaborating on particularly that issue. It will be a long healing process. It will be painful. It requires sacrifice, resilience, and endurance. And the question is, are we ready? From what I heard here the past 3 days, 4 days, this is 4th day now, has encouraged me to add that last bullets. This was an ambitious symposium, but it also convinced me that it must be possible, that there is a spirit that is necessary to start working on those problems in a serious manner. But first, let us look at what happens. A couple of quick things. This is a graph of the population on planet Earth as it was known to exist in 10,000 before the Common Era, so 12,000 years ago, and how it evolved over time. So you see how in a very short period, at the end of this graph on the horizontal axis, it shoots up and has reached now more than 8 billion, and we are on our way somewhere to 10 billion is now the figure that people mention, and well, then no one knows. If you take out of that that graph, a very much shorter version is the year 0, 2021. The industrial age started around 1750. So that would be about here. And you take this little part. I have taken that out on the next slide, and I'll show you what that looks like. That is this. This is the moment that industrialization occurred and continued and evolved and exploded. And this is a point in time that people now refer to as the Great Acceleration. It is an acceleration in the growth of the world population. We lived longer. You see it here. First of all, for the world, but you see it also for continents, for Asia, for Africa, for Europe, for North America, South America, and Oceania. Not only have we become very many, it has affected also all kinds of factors that define the Earth system and the socio-economic system. And all those factors are listed here, and they're all put in graphs, and you see that those also have these steeply rising curves. So indeed, as Jeffrey Sachs said in his lectures in 2007, this makes us burst out of the seams. I've used this picture before and I'm using it again because I've adapted it from a picture that I found on the internet that was available for use. But I've added a couple of things to it, particularly where we are in terms of time and space. And this is here, almost at the end, at the history of humanity. In the totality of the evolution of the universe. And as you are all aware, in terms of space, we are somewhere in a corner of a galaxy among billions of other galaxies. We are just sort of nothing, but we are very special. We are too many, and we are not well behaved, is my conclusion. When I look at those data. And we've been warned, and we have ignored the warnings. One of those warnings I read already long ago, in 1967, in a book by Arthur Koestler, The Ghost of the Machine. Appreciation of the consequence of technological developments. And he notes particularly the difficulty that we humans have in thinking not linearly. When such phenomena occur that we just saw, they look like exponential. They are worse than exponential, in fact. But Koestler referred to exponential phenomena, and we are not able to process that properly in our minds. We have no logarithmic scaling built in our computers. So our imagination is willing to accept that things are changing, but they're unable to accept the rate at which things change, and at the rate at which change changes, the second derivative. In 1983, a little book came out. It's not very well known, by Hendrik Casimir. Hendrik Casimir was you may be aware, a fairly prominent, if not very prominent, theoretical physicist in the Netherlands. But he didn't choose an academic career. He became the director of the physics laboratory at the Philips enterprise and worked there for the rest of his life. And so he has been responsible for promoting the research that was done in that laboratory, and that resulted in consumer products that got used in all kinds of situations. So he is looking back in that booklet on the what impact has it had. And though he has been very successful, and the Philips Lab, the physics laboratory, the Philips Physics Laboratory, very famous place where the output of the Delft Technische Hogeschool, the technological university, they attacked basically two places where people aspired to go. One was Philips, the other one was Shell. I hated both. But most of my colleagues chose that because that's where the money was. He lived from 1909 to 2000. And this is at the end of the introduction that he writes himself to the book. And this sentence that I've highlighted here, he says, justified ecological concern goes side by side with fanatic anti-intellectualism. Runaway technology has become a commonplace term, and alternative subcultures abound. But all the while, the dark clouds of the science-based technology of mass murder are gathering. So he's referring to the social movements that were that existed at that time in Europe, but despite the youthful opposition to what was happening at the level that no one could control, technology was developing in a way that he felt was extremely dangerous, which he's speaking about the mass murder. And indeed, well, when one analyzes the consequences of technological development, that we all know they're pretty problematic. So the title of that book was Haphazard Reality. The world is haphazard, and we know that now. And so did Tim Palmer. He called it chaotic. And you listen to him this week, and I've summarized in a few phrases what I think his message means, that we are not lost in a haphazard world. It is a different world. It poses its own specific problems. We have to live in it to embrace noise. We must dare to doubt. We should doubt and find comfort in not knowing things, but knowing what we don't know, and advance that way, comfortably accepting the uncertainty that there always is. It's like walking without a particular goal in mind, but coming on an intersection, deciding where should I go, and making a decision. And it's not an entirely rational decision. It's the kind of decisions that Palmer writes about. There's no road, but a path that you're making while walking. That's a phrase out of a poem by a Spanish poet that I project here in Spanish, and I've highlighted in Spanish. The poet is Antonio Machado, a famous 20th century poet in the Spanish literature. Here, there are English translations of that poem available, and that highlighted sentence is the one that I've put in the headline. So these are wise words, and they resonate well with Palmer's thesis. And it resonates also well with my own experience of literary walking that I do in that environment of which I projected a picture at the beginning of my lecture, and of my life's experience. And those same words may equally well guide us in our navigating the world of the Anthropocene. So let's get on the road and recognize that we live in interesting times. Why? I wrote that in a book, another book than the one that is on the table that I have here. It's a little thicker than most books, where I had the honor to write the last chapter. I'm entering in a career where I'm closing all kinds of things. This is also a centenary volume of an organization professional organization that works on the use of media, of technology for educational purposes, that I'm a member of. And in that chapter, I review what happened in the century past, and I look ahead of what is necessary to consider for the next 100 years. Fantasizing, obviously, but making the sort of decisions that I think Palmer is referring to as well. I ended that chapter with the sentence, "We live in interesting times." They're sometimes projected as apocalyptic. That's not a. Yeah, no, apocalyptic. It's right. It's rightly spelled. Apocalyptic, as pertaining to the end of the world. But I don't see it that way. They are what they are, and we wouldn't be human if we wouldn't see them as the greatest challenge humanity has ever met. And that's us humans. When we see a challenge, we want to take it on. So let's take it on, and we won't be bored. That's why I call it exciting. Now, I'm projecting here a couple of words that I briefly want to highlight. The idea of time, the idea of being and temporality, authenticity, meaningful choices, Anthropocene. Anthropocene I've already covered. Time and being are related. The considered most prominent philosopher of the 20th century, Heidegger, defines being in time. There's no being if there wouldn't be time, and time wouldn't be if there isn't being. So they are intimately related ideas. Temporality is what us defines. We, in the course of time, we have the consciousness of being here, temporality. In other words, we recognize that there's a past and there's a future. We have our authentic being, which means we strive to be ourselves. We don't want to be slaves. We want to be able to make meaningful choices. And this is particularly important in the context of the Anthropocene. So I refer to Martin Heidegger, and those same words are in those few sentences that I write here to summarize what I just said. That time and being are inextricably intertwined. Time shapes our being. The temporality of our existence compels us to make meaningful choices, because that's why we are here. They define our authenticity. For us, whose existence happens to fall in the current juncture of time, our authentic being will be shaped by the Anthropocene. And the Anthropocene will be shaped by us. That's the privilege that we have to do that. This makes our time so interesting. I walk literally every day, on average 20 kilometers a day. Large part early morning. No preset goal in mind, and while I walk, my mind wanders. It's very healthy for your mental constitution, also for your physical constitution. At times, I walk together. That's at times even more interesting, because then there's dialogue. And when you walk, the dialogue is often much more powerful than we have a dialogue. So as we have it here, you sit around the table or whatever. From that dialogue ensues new meaning. It's an evolutionary process. I've walked since that date in 1993, more than 30 years now. And it also allowed me to experience the limit sizes of planets and exoplanets. I list them here, those whose distances around the equatorial circumference I covered one after the other. I've ticked off those where I've been successful. There are 2 planets left in our solar system that I guess I won't be able to reach before it's the end of my temporality. So I started on exoplanets. I've done one, Gliese 3470b, and I'll soon, probably still before the end of this year, have done Kepler-3b with a radius of 4.36 times the radius of the Earth. I will be very grateful for any suggestions for further exoplanets that I can cover with radii of approximately those that I've indicated on this slide. There's no price to attach to it, but just my gratitude. The picture that you see is a documentary, short documentary of about 10 minutes that is made of my walking life, that is available on YouTube with the URL for that YouTube available that you may want to explore. Incidentally, walking also probably saved my life on several occasions because of medical conditions that I have, and that brought me close to dying. So to care for the Earth, there must be a meaningful and intimate, loving relationship between us and Earth that involves us cognitively, emotionally, and spiritually. It's terribly lacking, in my view. We know that the Earth is there, we accept it, it's the given that I mentioned in the beginning, but feeling that there is that relationship, how great that I am on this planet, it doesn't come automatically for people like ourselves living in these societies where you live in and where I grew up in. It perhaps is more present among indigenous communities. I'm pretty sure I worked for 20 years in Africa, and in part in rural parts of Africa, that the perspective that one has there is closer to the Earth than it is in our case. But I must say that walking on the Earth, on the crust of the Earth, and I'm very conscious about it, has made me feel that this is a planet that carries me, and that I have fallen in love with. It's something that one must experience. And you must experience that this is not just inorganic material, it's also organic material, and it's living organic material, and living organic material in which the mind has emerged, that manifests itself creatively, and that has resulted in the building of culture. And there is difficult to pinpoint a reason why we should be concerned about the Earth. People like Steven Weinberg, for instance, he raises that question. Can't see a point. For me, the point is, if all this is there, is worth preserving. And our mission in life can be not just to survive, because we will not survive. We have our temporality, we have our time, but beyond our time, there are other beings in time. We are inheritors of the past, and we must be good ancestors for those who will follow us in the future. Cultural life, that means arts and science. And mind the underlined words here. So what is care? I've thought a lot about it, and I had a whole series of slides already prepared. When I arrived here, I threw them away yesterday night and started anew. Because of what I had heard in this symposium. I learned more than from those days that I passed here. That's prompted me to say, no, I'm going to redefine things. I think it's a disposition to always be there, to act in a way that expresses your adherence to particular values and particular attitudes. And that finds expression in moral and ethical frameworks. There are no imperatives, nothing that is forced upon us, but that we collectively discover, and it becomes part of the consciousness of global humanity. That's at least what I would want to see. It's a complex concept connoted by keywords. I've done some search on the internet using the now available opportunities to use artificial intelligence also to go through networks and explore a whole series of authors that have written about care and checked words that come up frequently and that come up consistently among authors when they talk about care. So here's a whole, and it's definitely not complete, but it's the gist of what I found. Compassion, empathy, nurturing relationships, attentiveness, ability to listen and to see, responsibility, receptivity, respect, reciprocity. It's not one way, it goes both ways. Responsibility, trust, recognition of mutual vulnerability, connectedness, love. And I added myself yesterday night the concept of gentle touch. I think touch is extremely important. I feel literally my touch with the earth. But it's a gentle one. I want to be careful with what I touch. And I think we should always be careful in caring. Care is learned by experience. You learn it the same way that you learn to walk. Just do it. Here's a picture of expression of love and expression of care among two species, a human and a feline. It's actually our cat. And the hand you see is my wife's hand. Cat is 90 years old, which in human years is about 108. He's at the end of his life and needs to be taken care of in the sense that he can't easily feed himself more on his own. So he's being helped doing that. And there's this reciprocity in his interaction with us as his caretakers that he is a great joy. This is an animal who communicates with us in fantastic ways. As I'm a musician also and play the piano, he wants me to play the piano every night. He sits down for it, to listen to it. Is familiar with particular pieces of music that I play. He has his preferences for particular composers, and even of those composers, particular compositions that he wants to hear, and makes it clear. He can make it clear at particular points of the score where something happens that is musically interesting, those singularities that you have in a musical composition where it leads to a point and something else comes forward from it. And then he raises his head, and when he's see, here's it happening. So that is, for me, a very interesting case where you see communication among species. Here you have members of the same species. Acting, showing touch, that's in a state where they grieve about the death of a fellow animal, fellow elephant. They do it as much as we do it. Here, the gentle touch of care in the interaction between gravity and different life forms, in this case, a tree. And see how that tree grows within the gravitational field of the Earth. This fantastic curve. We can also do it. I did it, like here. But do we really feel gravity? You have to train yourself to consciously feel gravity. You know that it's there, but no, it must go further. It must become part of your emotional world. And that then brings in that contact with the reality of the planet that is ours. It's a learning process. But it's different than the learning that you do in school. It's not something that can be preached to you. It's, you have to practice, you have to experience. And it's a process that goes gently because it changes you. It must change you. It's transformative learning, transformative of ourselves and our ways of being. And that must change, because if we don't change in our ways of being, we remain unadapted to the conditions of the Anthropocene, and that will indeed lead to disaster. That's what we should absolutely be conscious about. And that's what I said in the beginning. There's sacrifice to be made, but making such sacrifices is not necessarily a bad thing for us to do, if one can learn a lot from the pain one undergoes. And those transformations that we undergo, they occur when the conditions are right. This is actually part of research that we have done almost 25 years ago with the Learning Development Institute when we started our work, finding out what actually experience people as their most important learning experience in life. And we asked them that question: what is it that really hit you? And let them write it down. So we surveyed people around the world, different cultures, even illiterate people in the Andes Mountains in South America, through interviewing, but those who were literate, they could write. What comes out in the analysis is that it's almost never in a consequence of what people underwent in school. It's always something that happens in the informal environment in which we live. In fact, our learning life is for more than 90% not in formal circumstances. It's outside it. So you may want to take that into account in the discussions that you were having about your career perspectives and all those different things. There's more than having a career. Having a life is quite interesting as well. What is happening here? something happened to the lettering. I see such changes happen. It means that what I'm saying could be interpreted as well. You can do nothing about it. No, that's not the case. But it's not like in deliberate learning, where, say, if you want to teach someone quantum mechanics, you know the movements that you need to go through. But that's not what I'm, and you can very easily then create a condition for that to happen. But this kind of transformative learning that I'm talking about, that depends on environmental conditions that must be there, and that result then in making you do things differently. Those conditions can be created, and the design process that is involved in it is called transition design. And it's particularly architects and urban planners and environmental planners that work currently in that field. So if you take your own city here, Bandung, and think of how much it could improve if you had the chance to redesign it. The government of Indonesia is going to rebuild its capital in Borneo, so they have the opportunity now to do it right. Instead of what it is, you create spaces such that people feel comfortable in doing the things that should best be done in the interests of caring for the earth. It's like if you don't want to spoil the atmosphere by motorized traffic using fossil fuels, make sure that there are transport facilities that are independent of people using their personal cars or motorcycles, that allow them to go from A to B, or that they can walk, or they can use a bicycle, or whatever other means that you can think of. Or if one has to use motorized vehicles, then it's still a matter of how people use them. And that can be very well regulated. The Netherlands has done very great work in that respect, in creating road systems in urban environments such that people can't drive fast, but also that they don't feel frustrated because they can't drive fast as they probably want. So life must remain enjoyable, and it can. Now, my conclusion at the end of this symposium is that I agree with what we heard, that astronomy is uniquely positioned to serve as an attractor and a facilitator for transition design networks that provide the conditions for transformative learning across and beyond the boundaries of disciplines, interests, and cultural preconceptions. And there are two examples that I have chosen to mention, and in fact, I already yesterday, in reacting to George Miley's formidable presentation, his proposal of the GLORE network is, this is for me a revelation. This must be done. Because here you can really step outside, and which is the unique opportunity that astronomy has, outside your own discipline and enter in all kinds of other areas, not only scientific ones, but also cultural ones and socio-economic ones that you can interact with, religious ones, you name it. Second example, Cecilia Scorza's Pale Blue Dot project. Beautiful materials for learning and teaching that learners and teachers can use at liberty. They can redesign them, they can play with them. But as we discussed this afternoon, it's not always easy to get them where they should be, places of the world where resources are scarce. I hope we can do something to help solve that problem through contexts that we have. So some final thoughts. Care for the earth, for each other, across all species, and for yourself. Embrace the challenges of life in the Anthropocene, its noise, and the inherent opportunities. Practice walking in whatever way, and use it as a metaphor for navigating the time that is yours. Remain scientifically mindful, and thinking back of Cecilia's observations, use your hands in artful ways to transform the world for the better. Stay in gentle touch. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, thank you. So, well, I guess we are here to see whether we could really follow up this symposium with, further ideas on work, etc. But again, thank you for helping us with emphasizing beyond projects, beyond facilities, that using words that's come back to perhaps unique to humans. But then you show us pictures which compassion are not unique to humans. So here we are. The word care is something which is very much underlined, explored further by Jan. So thank you very much. Questions, comments, please, here in Zoom. Agus, please. And
Okay, thank you for a touching presentation, Dr. Ian. Actually, I have two things to be discussed about. The first thing is there is a saying or a wise word we could say that I believe. I rather forgot the precise word, but it's like this: if we want to be safe, walk alone. Sorry, if we want to be fast, walk alone. But if we want to be safe, walk together. But according to your presentation, if we want to save our Earth, we have to act fast. It means that we have to act alone, not together with others. So I'm confused actually right now. Do you have any insight about this, or the saying is wrong or something like that? That's the first thing. The second thing is, it is interesting on how you describe the word care with some description and the keyword. But I saw that the keyword itself, the keyword themselves also have a fake meaning. I mean, we have to describe also the keyword, right? I mean, like, what is gentle touch? Is it the same between my touch and others? For example, for human, it is act of crime if I toss my baby from 3-story building, right? But for bird, tossing the the baby bird is like to teach them how to fly, something like that. So I'm confused again about how should we act about care, because in my mind, in my opinion, caring is not so easy to be described quantitatively. Thank you.
You're absolutely right. It is very difficult to describe it. It's why I threw my slides away yesterday night and made another attempt to do it again. And even so, you come up with your doubts, which you should, because there's a primacy of doubt. But let me try to respond to your first question. Yes, it is dramatic. We must act fast. And we should act fast at a particular level that we can. But we are held back, not we, people like us here in this room and those who listen to us online, but say the people who could really do something at a larger scale in government positions, they should do so, and they don't. That was, and I'm not exactly of his political line, but Jacques Chirac, as French president at that time, the phrase that he uttered, our house is on fire, and we look the other way as if nothing is happening. He had it right, and he actually had that phrase because it was given to him by a historian of science that had proposed to him to use that phrase, but he uttered it in the right environment. But even so, and even though that phrase became famous, we still don't comply with the commitments that have been made at the various conferences to mitigate the consequence of climate change, like the Paris Accord, and we see it over and over again. Same happens when it comes to development of educational possibilities around the world that I've been involved in as an official in the UNESCO context. Yes, all those countries agreed and they signed the protocols and whatever, and by so-and-so, by the year 2000, and if it wasn't by the year 2000, then it became the 2010, and now it's 2030. It's shifting, but it never happens what should happen. But at those positions, there is the power, and they misuse the power. How come? Because we don't have sufficient power, but we should create that power. In fact, we are interacting with the existing power structure and accepting all the various things. I'm not calling for a rebellion in the sense that we start destroying things, but in our own behavior, we can do things. So if I know that it was a considerable consideration for me to decide to fly to Bandung. I have a flying life, very tense flying life, even there have been long periods, years and years, that more than 50% of my time I was not at home because I was in other countries. It was part of my job in UNESCO. But since the year 2000, it was prompted by COVID, of course, in the first place. But it was for me also an opportunity for reflection that, hey, I'm going to reduce that as much as possible. I found this so important that I felt I should not categorically decide never to fly anymore, but do it when there's really an urgent reason to do that, and the fact that you were asking that question justifies that choice that I made. So for us, we can act. I don't mean that we should be lax at doing our things, but the change itself is gradual. If we think, well, we are going to create change overnight, we will be frustrated the next morning as we see that it hasn't happened. But we can do those little things, and we are 8 billion on this planet. The rest, what's over the 8 billion, is that small class of people who irritate us because they have the power, but we can't go against them. So that about the fast and slow. And then, yeah, your other question about this interaction, we humans are special. All life forms are special, but what is important is that we as humans should not see our specialness as something exceptional. We are not, because that is what culturally developed and what you find embedded in mythologies and in religious frameworks, that they describe us as being sort of the crown of the creation. That's what we think, and that's how we created those stories. But the reality is different. We don't know. I don't know what happens in that animal that you saw, our cat, but I do see very interesting behaviors. I know for him, it's not that he says, oh, this is the 15th Chopin prelude that he's playing or something like that. And no, but the fact that he shows not just to appreciate things, but to react specifically to it, that's a kind of ability that has taken me a long time actually to develop in myself. Not only in music, but in appreciating literature, in appreciating the visual arts. So, yeah, it's this exceptionalism that we have. I think we should overcome that. Think of ourselves as we are part of a larger living framework that beautifies the crust of planet Earth and make it even nicer.
The next question, Eric.
Thank you, yeah, for the excellent talk. It was really very important because I always tell to the students that astronomy is the only science that explores everything, but not the Earth. So all sciences work for study of the Earth, and astronomy is the only. But really, astronomy allowed us to understand that the Earth is unique, as your old talk was about, and very important. So now astronomers try to find and prove that the Earth is not unique. They try to find exoplanets. So what is your vision about that?
Sorry?
What is your vision if the Earth becomes not the only planet in the future?
My reason for the Earth becoming?
For taking care of all this.
The reason for taking care of it, you mean? Well, that's what I said. I think it's motivated by the appreciation that I have for what I inherited. I positioned myself as someone who happened to have landed here on this planet when I started my talk, and going through life, what I initially saw was ugliness. I have continued to see a lot of ugly things, but I also see things that I find absolutely, indeed exceptional. Things that there's sort of singularities in cultural life that we encounter. I'm sensitive to the arts and then to science, obviously. So the emergence at the time that I entered the world and started thinking about nature, very inspired by the ideas of Einstein and the astronomers of that time that I even started reading as a 16-year-old already, exploring them in the library. It wasn't taught in school, but so this is exceptional in the sense it's a singularity occurs, and all of a sudden you start thinking about the physical world in terms of its quantum mechanical basis, and start seeing it differently than it was in the Newtonian world, and digging then into history and looking at how the Greeks would see their world and recognizing that were equally beautiful pictures of nature, only we declare them false or because they don't match our theories, of course, but same applies to what we know now, and which will also change over time, of course, the more that we are starting this to discover. More so even in the arts, certain composers, musical composers, say, well, this is God-given, that a person like Beethoven or Bach has appeared in the history of mankind. I think it's my responsibility to care for the opportunity of future human life to appreciate the same things that I appreciate and even more. So it's a role that I see that and I think we humans in general have. We represent life as it currently is, but we can contribute to enhancing life, and that's hopefully that should go on. Of course, from our cosmological perspective, we know also there is a temporality, but from the perspective of my temporality and your temporality and our collective temporalities, that's what I'll be happy to do, what I'm trying to do.
Thank you, Jan. Okay, one question in the back and then number two. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. When you talk about the Anthropocene, it reminds me about my senior work from multidisciplinary journal Indonesia from Student Press, and from the journal, it asks some question that I want to ask to you. So let me just read it. They said that he said that Karl Marx, in the 18 Brumaire of Louis Bonaparte in 1852, stated that humans make history, but not based on their choices. Humans, as Martin Heidegger put it, are thrown into the world and must make history that what already exists before they exist. Coincidentally, we live in the 21st century in condition of long-developed economic, social, political, technological, and scientific advancement. What we face in our daily life is the result of Homo sapiens' efforts to sustain life. As living beings, humans need to fulfill their basic needs such as eating, drinking, seeking shelter from the weather, and reproducing. However, in meeting these needs, humans are constrained. Therefore, humans engage in necessary action to surpass their limitation. The bad news is the current situation will remain for millions of years. It's possible that the Earth's temperature will continue to rise, sea levels will flood cities, animals will become extinct, and we don't know how the Earth will adapt. According to Stefan et al. About the Anthropocene, what is happening now has occurred frequently on Earth. Temperature, the Pleistocene change rapidly. The problem is that this is new from Homo sapiens. We know that the Earth's conditions supporting the growth and prosperity of humans that are Holocene, what humans will face in the Anthropocene may be unpredictable. So the question is, should we wait for extinction or confront our potentially catastrophic future? That's from my senior article. That's the question.
I have difficulty understanding. I have a slight hearing problem. Romana, can you perhaps?
Thank you, Jessica. I think you read us a rather long quotation. And would you just repeat the question itself?
So the question is, should we wait for extinction or confront our potentially catastrophic future from the Anthropocene itself, the theory of Anthropocene itself? So it may be related to our works as scientists, that should we just should we just wait for the extinction? It's the philosophical question actually. Or
okay, I think we should get the
okay.
Thank you
so
very much.
What's basically the question?
The question is whether we should wait for extinction
Or act.
or potential catastrophe. So I guess it's almost the same.
Yeah,
The catastrophe would create the extinction, would cause the extinction.
yeah, that yeah, extinction. Obviously, we shouldn't wait for extinction. There are already signs. That's that article that I referred to in Nature, Bronowski, where he notes that there are signs we are already in the sixth mass extinction. Doesn't necessarily mean that we will fall victim to that mass extinction, but when a mass extinction happens, then we know what happened in the past. Then entire species disappear, and it's in the cases so far, it has resulted in that evolution could start anew. It was sort of a restart. We wouldn't have been here if the dinosaurs, for instance, hadn't disappeared in one of those mass extinctions. So that was our benefit. There's no choice in those methods. The world is haphazard, but as we live in a haphazard reality, we're not going to do nothing. This is to do with this concept that I mentioned of authenticity. what you want yourself to be something. You're not going to sit here and wait. So, waiting for nothing. Of course, if that extinction happens, there's no one left of us to declare this has been a disaster because we are extinct. So I think the choice of words here makes it impossible to give a specific answer. But basically, the objective reality that we can discuss is that question of extinction. Yes, that can happen, and we have always known that, but we have always looked the other way, as Mr. Chirac would say, and I think we still do. But we shouldn't. But it shouldn't hold us from leading a fulfilling life and doing what I suggested we do, namely use our being here and at this particular space of time to enhance the world for those who will follow us, as we, and that's how I experience it, may be grateful for what our ancestors have done.
We just take one more question because it's almost 5. So
thank you for your presentation about caring for the Earth. Sometimes scientists have ideas to protect the Earth based on research and experience, but sometimes governments have other ideas that are not supported by data and evidence. My question is, how do you think we deal with this? Thank you. How do you think we deal with this problem?
okay. Perhaps you could just give an illustration what is not supported by evidence. Just an example.
Maybe like the government in Nusa Tenggara, maybe they make the student has to school at 5 a.m. like that.
Yeah, you shouldn't do that. is my comment. Yeah, at least you shouldn't do it if you haven't seriously explored the various options that are available. If there are serious reasons to do something that is uncomfortable, but not, and perhaps having potential of also having negative impact, then the kind of choices need to be made that Tim Palmer was talking about, where your rationality fails because it has to do with prediction in a chaotic world. So that is this kind of world is about let's do that. Good examples, of course, that we have seen in the context of the COVID-19 crisis, something that we had never experienced before. In that sense, we've had pandemics, but this one was rather special. The measures that had to be taken were tough, and they were bound to have negative impacts. People could die even because of the measures that were taken. If the measures were not taken, also people could die. It is a question of comparing numbers, not just a question of comparing numbers, because there are many more other angles to that same problem. It's not only that we are solving that current crisis, we're also looking at a further advanced future in which we could expect that more such pandemics would emerge, and where we have to prepare in a much longer term perspective. Then this takes place in a world in which there is a chaotic distribution of information and misinformation, that people are no longer trained and prepared to critically think about and make their own well-informed decisions. And those then who have to make those decisions, they get large portions of the population against them. What consequences could that have? Because they sit in policies that also touch on other things. It is greatly chaotic, and there is no sort of clear rational answer that you can give. But yes, if the only issue that is at stake is the amount of sleep that a child gets, and if there is no other positive impacts, that seriously positive impact of the measure that you take, then you should do it, of course.
Okay, thank you, Jan. There's a more potential question from George. George, would you come in?
Yeah, it's getting late, so maybe we'll talk to Jan afterwards by internet. But of course, we all agree that care of the earth is really extremely important and basic, and we all want to preserve Beethoven, Einstein, the culture that we've all developed. But at the same time, the earth is in many cases, many countries are ruled by market forces and people who do not feel this. And so we also still have 200,000 nuclear weapons in the world. And so of course, I agree with all of what you've said, but at the same time, there is a contradiction with how the world is governed. So I wonder what you feel about that.
I'm in total agreement again with you, George. This is, I'm looking at what we can do in the situation that we are in, and the soft forces that we can apply to counteract what is not happening at the level that you are referring to. Do you have yourself a better proposal?
No, but by the way, thank you. Your talk was very inspiring, but you ended on an optimistic note. I'm not sure if I share your optimism.
No, I'm not optimistic, but perhaps I don't want to tell you that I'm pessimistic, but it's I'm optimistic in the sense, I wouldn't call it optimistic, but I'm fired up. because I see an enormous challenge and I like to take it on. And I want to encourage other people to do the same. But it doesn't mean that I'm optimistic. I know the stakes are high, and we may go through serious suffering, but it must be done.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think we've gone on a long time, so we can have a conversation outside.
Okay.
Oh, thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, George. I think the last bit of conversation, being optimistic is sometimes doesn't represent reality, but we must. I mean, considering all these young people here, we must be optimistic, right? I mean, they have the longer future than we do. I mean, you already 30 decades ahead of me, and these people are 3 decades behind me. So we need to have the Earth sort of up and alive. So I guess, I don't know, I'm trying to be
I think that the message is that these young people have to fight for it. And if they do, the world will continue to exist and will be a great place. But it needs the young people to really fight for it.
Oh, there you go. And I guess, I don't know, there is an idea that beauty is something that we appreciate, but sometimes beauty is the very thing that guard us from bad things, because we like to preserve beauty. And astronomy, being one of the universal beauty, maybe could come into the picture, even though perhaps rather as a soft skill, ideas, knowledge. But if each of us is equipped with the idea that this cosmos is beautiful, we're coming from it, maybe there's a glimpse of hope that perhaps not very constructive, not very concrete, but if that is inherent in everybody's mind from they're very young, we may have because we need to be optimistic. Okay, I guess, thank you very much, Jan, for helping us underlining important things from this symposium. I know you worked very hard because you were ready with your slides, and then you threw away some because you heard ideas during the 3 days. So we really appreciate your dynamic in preparing your talk. So, and I would like to thank everyone who's been very, very patient, very participative in this symposium. Again, this is a new endeavor, and also for our friends joining us from elsewhere around the world, from Zoom and YouTube. Thank you so very much. It means a lot to us, the organizers, to have a positive outcome, but we need to work harder, because this is not just a symposium. This is a first step that we need to continue on and, build and pave for future work. Again, thank you so much. Please stay in tune, as they say. Some of the recordings of our symposium will be eventually posted on our website, the Bosscha Observatory. The YouTube already there, but the videos of the sessions will need a little bit of time to be put, but it's going to be there. And remember that we will have the proceedings. Please work extra hard for the proceedings. Again, there will be a record for this pioneer meeting in this topic. So even though this is probably just a small symposium, not very like hundreds of people attending it, but we all hope that it is making a history one way or the other. So please write your papers. You have few weeks to finish it, and this is an integral part of the symposium, the publication. Again, thank you so much for everything. Before I would like to have somebody to close it, but before then, we would like to invite our very heroic invited speakers who came all the way to be with us here. So Arek and Koichiro and Jan, would you please be with us in front so we could take pictures of you? And thank you again for everything. Is a little bit of souvenirs that we would like. And I would like to invite Pak Taufik, Pak Dani, Bu Hesti to please come and help with the, thank you. Thank you. Yes, George. Thank you, George, for being so faithful.
But Pramana, Selamat again on the 100th anniversary of the founding of Bosscha, of the fantastic Bosscha Observatory. I think we shouldn't forget that that is the reason for having the symposium in the first place. So congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you for putting that 120th birthday. We will have radio facilities.
I won't be here to see it, but I really hope it works out.
Okay, there will be a little bit of, please, Bu Hesti, Pak Dani. So those are real stamps. Those are real postage stamps. One for the 100th commemoration of Bosscha Observatory. The other is for the total solar eclipse this year. And those are what they call the souvenir sheet. But you know, if you put it on the envelope and send it from Indonesia, they take it. So those are real postage stamps. So thank you so very much. And somebody should close the symposium.
Okay, now we are at the end of this meeting. So thank you very much for everyone for such fruitful meeting. And once again, we thank all speakers, all invited and contributed speakers. Let's give applause to everyone. And tomorrow we still have a tour to Bosscha Observatory. So we will meet at 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock at the front of this building. And then we go by bus together to Bosscha. See you then at Bosscha Observatory. And have a safe flight for everybody who come here by plane, and also those by train and etc. And see you in other meeting then. Okay, bye-bye.